So I hear you're stuck in debt hell because of some futile fertility treatments. A few years after our divorce, my ex-husband came up to me with a sarcastic smile. We were in a famous wine country and had unexpectedly run into each other. It's pathetic, really. All that effort for nothing. He scoffed, looking down on me. After our divorce, he had remarried and been blessed with children. Living contentedly with his family, thinking of himself as a winner and mocking me. And whose story might that be? I replied, patting my slightly swollen belly. I wonder who really needs fertility treatments. Little did he know, he was about to discover a shocking truth. No matter how much he ranted or clung to me, it was too late for regrets. The beginning of his life's downfall was unfolding. The false happiness he had from his mistaken beliefs was crumbling down with a crash. Those who attain happiness. Those who miss it. Our encounter would sharply delineate the fortunes of our respective futures. My name is Mary. I work at a travel agency counter. I propose various plans to customers who come in, arranging trips that leave them satisfied. I found great fulfillment in such work. Stephen and I got married after a workplace romance. He joined my branch as the new manager, a man of very calm demeanor, always treating me with a kind smile. During the busy seasons like summer holidays, overtime increased, and we often worked late into the night together. Between tasks, we'd get excited about fun conversations or encourage each other through tough times, and gradually, the time we spent together increased. Eventually, we became aware of each other and started dating, which led to marriage. After marriage, I was transferred to another branch. Working at a travel agency means lots of overtime and it's tough. You've worked hard without a complaint up till now. Once we're married, it's okay to relax a bit and be a homemaker. My husband did say, showing concern, which made me feel incredibly happy. However, I found my work rewarding and had a dream I absolutely wanted to realize. For that dream, I had lived a frugal life and saved up money. So, I decided to continue working even after marriage. My husband respected my feelings. And so, we both devoted ourselves to working at different branches. Understanding each other's work, we returned home every evening to comfort and toast one another, enjoying such simple happiness. 2 years into our marriage. It's taking quite a while for us to have a baby, isn't it? I started to feel a bit anxious as 2 years passed without conceiving a child. I lost my parents when I was a student. Growing up as an only child, there were many times I felt lonely. Because of that, I always dreamt of being part of a big family. So after getting married, I wanted to have at least 2 kids, not necessarily a large brood, but definitely more than one. There's no need to rush. They will come when the time's right. He was receptive to my feelings and agreed on starting a family. I wonder if I might be infertile. Maybe I should get checked out at the hospital, I said, looking downhearted. Don't be so down on yourself. Everything's gonna be okay. But if it'll ease your mind, go ahead and see the doctor, my husband said, gently stroking my hair. He always understood me. I was so touched I almost cried. Then I started visiting the OB/GYN and went through several tests. After numerous tests, they didn't find anything wrong with me. That's great news, there's nothing wrong, my husband said happily, looking at the test results. See? What did I tell ya? There's no need to worry. The baby will come when it's ready. His kind smile saved me more times than I could count. I felt so much lighter. Next up is the test for you. It's a short procedure, so maybe you could squeeze it in during a work break? It's likely that my husband won't have any issues either. But just to be safe, I wanted him to get tested. Of course, I was confident that my husband would agree readily. Why should I get tested? Infertility is usually a woman's issue, and it's pointless for me to do it. My husband's response caught me off guard. It might seem pointless, but just as a precaution. Besides, if it turns out to be an issue on the man's side, there are treatments available. Won't you consider it? I could see my husband's expression cloud over. I understood his reluctance to get tested. If there was a problem found, it could be a blow to his pride as a man. It was a delicate issue. And I knew pushing him wouldn't be right. There's no rush. When you have the time. But my husband remained silent. The day ended without another word on the subject. One day, we went to visit my husband's family home. It was my mother-in-law's birthday, and we brought her a bouquet and a gift. When my husband was a child, his father had an affair and then disappeared. Since then, my mother-in-law had to raise my husband by herself. I heard she had gone through a lot of hardships. My mother-in-law turned 65 this year and finally retired after years of hard work, never skimping on raising her children along the way. I've always respected her as a woman for that. I hope she can now spend her days happily and at ease. That's what I was thinking. The bouquet and gift, I was sure she'd be thrilled with them. With that conviction, I opened the front door of my in-laws' house. "Well, hello there." My mother-in-law greeted us with a bright smile. "Oh, what beautiful flowers! And this is a bath set. I'm so touched you remembered how much I love my baths." Just as I thought, she was delighted. It should have been a pleasant time for the three of us from there on out. But then, "I'm happy about the gifts and flowers, but I'm starting to look forward to seeing a grandchild's face," she said, and the mood changed in an instant. I was at a loss for words and glanced at my husband. But he stayed silent. "Mary, I understand you're busy with work, but there are more important things than work, aren't there? You need to face your own health and think about starting a family. There are fertility treatments available nowadays. I have faced my health issues. I've been tested. And there was no problem found. I want to hold a dear grandchild in these arms soon. Mary, I'm waiting, you know." She meant it too. Why is it always assumed that the woman is to blame for infertility? Why is nothing ever said to my husband? Yes. I couldn't bring myself to argue. I was afraid it would cause a rift between my mother-in-law and me. I wished my husband would speak up and explain properly. But he remained silent all along. It felt like the blame for not having children was being put entirely on me. I'm expecting to hear the good news of a baby on the way by my next birthday. Those words weighed heavily on me. Being given a deadline just makes me all the more anxious. I kept telling myself not to worry, but my mother-in-law's words echoed in my head constantly. I can't remember a thing from the conversation that followed. As evening fell, we left my in-laws' place. On the way home, my husband and I walked shoulder to shoulder in silence. The setting sun cast our long shadows on the sidewalk. I kept my eyes on those shadows the whole way. My husband's shadow marched straight ahead. What could he be thinking right now? How did he take what his mother said today? I wanted to ask, but I couldn't. No, I was afraid to. Afraid I'd be crushed by his words again. We arrived home without a word. "I'm starved. Let's get dinner started," my husband said as if nothing had happened. He was probably planning to end the day without touching on how I felt. I gathered my courage and broke the silence. "Hey, Stephen, about what your mom said today." He turned to me with his usual smile. "Huh? What about it? Is that smile of his fake? She said she wanted grandkids, didn't she?" I looked straight at my husband. "Yeah. But since we can't have them, we just gotta wait, right?" "No, that's not what I'm trying to say. You were the one telling me to prioritize my health over work and to consider fertility treatments. I faced the issue head-on and got tested, and there was nothing wrong." My husband's expression began to change. "Why didn't you say anything back then? It feels like it's all being blamed on me." "But it's not me who's not facing the issue, it's you, isn't it, Stephen?" I hadn't intended to say it like that. But once I started, the words just wouldn't stop. All my pent-up frustration exploded. "What the heck? Always talking about tests. I already told you that. The cause of infertility is often on the woman's side. And what Mom said wasn't wrong. It's not my fault," my husband shouted, his face turning red. This wasn't the man I knew. "I know it's not your fault, Stephen. It's wrong to blame anyone for infertility. I just want us to move forward. Whether we go through treatment or not, we need to start with the tests." No matter how much we argued, neither of us would accept the other's point of view, and we remained at a stalemate. "I can't deal with this anymore. I'm hungry, I'm gonna go get something to eat." With that, my husband left the house. I was left alone in the quiet room. Suddenly, I felt all the strength leave my body, and I slumped down on the sofa. The image of my husband shouting came back to me. Was it my fault? I didn't mean to make my kind husband angry. That wasn't my intention. I just wanted to be understood. I wanted to work together to carve out our future. That's why I wanted the tests. I couldn't stop crying. In the quiet room, only the sound of my sobbing echoed. The next morning, my husband came home silently. "You said you were just going out to eat. Where did you spend the night?" I was worried. My husband wouldn't even listen to my words. "It doesn't matter." Leaving just that one phrase hanging in the air, my husband left for work. It was our first big fight. These things happen. I thought he'd be in a better mood by this evening. With that hope, I too headed off to work. All morning, I could only sigh. But my husband's mood didn't seem to improve, no matter how many days passed. He started leaving the house earlier than before and returning home later. On weekends, he'd leave without saying a word and come back only after I had gone to bed. The times we used to spend just the two of us had drastically reduced. It felt like he was avoiding me. I no longer knew how to approach him. Gradually, this silent living became our new normal. I can't even remember the times when we used to cherish our moments together. What made us this way? Was it so wrong to suggest that test? And finally, my husband stopped coming home. "Lately you've been away a lot. Where are you staying?" We talked with our backs turned to each other. "I've been swamped at work and always miss the last train, so I stay at a business hotel near the office," he said, his back also turned to me. "I see." And then he went off to the bedroom. At some point, my bed had become the couch in the living room. The excuse of work being too late to come home doesn't add up. It's not even the busy season. My husband's hiding something. It became a reality a few weeks later. My husband would come home every few days, dump a load of laundry for me to do. Then, he'd pack his freshly washed underwears and clothes into his bag and scurry off. He could at least wash these himself. I muttered to myself as I loaded my husband's laundry into the machine. That's when I heard something drop with a clink. I looked on the floor, but nothing was there. But I was sure I heard something. I searched again, more carefully this time. What could have fallen? It was when I stepped back that I saw something glinting at my feet. Here it is. What's this? I picked up the shimmering object and placed it in my hand. Oh. I was at a loss for words. The shining object in my palm was a small earring. For a moment, my mind went blank, but I was not as shocked as I thought I'd be. It was obvious to anyone when he stopped coming home. My husband was having an affair. Somewhere in my heart, I had this suspicion. But I was afraid to face the truth and pretended not to care. I just didn't want to hurt myself. But now, faced with reality, I can't run anymore. I've decided to confront my husband squarely. To grasp the proof of his affair and end our marriage. The next day, I headed to a private investigator. A few days later, my husband's affair was out in the open. The other woman was a new employee at the branch office where he worked. Around the time our marriage started to crack, this young and pretty employee joined the company. With his trademark calm demeanor and kind smile, my husband charmed this female employee. He got close to her by being her mentor at work, and it seems they became involved. It was new to me, but apparently, my husband had made moves on various female employees before. Using his position as a superior, he would sweet-talk women, getting close to them. That was his clever tactic. I was just one of the women who had fallen for his scheme. The reason he chose me as a marriage partner was probably because I was convenient for him. Frustration welled up inside me. I decided. It's time to end this life. That night, as usual, my husband came home with a heap of laundry. "You might as well have her do your laundry at her place instead of coming all the way home," I said to his back. He stopped and turned around. "What are you talking about?" "I told you, it's work." Then he looked at me with a cold stare. "Is this what work is to you? What exactly are you teaching this female employee after hours?" I shoved several photos in front of my husband. The photos showed the two of them leaving the workplace and entering the apartment where the female employee lived alone. "What's this?" My husband seemed unable to hide his surprise. "Don't play dumb with me. I've dug up everything. And these earrings, weren't they the ones she was looking for? They were caught on your shirt." He froze as he looked at the earrings resting on my palm. "I never thought you were such a womanizer. Let's just end this. Now you can date her openly." With that, I handed him the divorce papers. A tense silence filled the air. He stared at the divorce papers, shock written all over his face. Then, suddenly, he burst into laughter. "What's this? Sour grapes? Are you jealous because we can't have kids? If you've got time to take pictures like these, why not focus on getting treatment so you can get pregnant?" He had the audacity to say that. Who's really full of sour grapes here? I struggled to contain my rising anger. Divorce? That suits me fine. She's pregnant. I've been wanting to cut ties with you ASAP. I'm only thinking about my new family now. To top off his affair, he got her pregnant. What a reckless man. I was at a loss for words. And so, we got divorced. It was an anticlimactic end. He took only the bare essentials and left. I also decided to move out of the rental condo we had lived in together. After finishing the lease termination, I was cleaning up the apartment. Everything my husband left behind went straight into trash bags. I didn't have a shred of nostalgia. Just then, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at a time like this? I slowly opened the front door. Outside the door, there stood a man alone. His hair was unkempt, and he wore dirty clothes. He was a man I had never seen before. He greeted me and began to speak. His words left me astonished. 3 years had passed since then. After my divorce, I continued to save diligently, and finally, I reached my savings goal. I had made my dream come true. And so, I quit my job at the travel agency. One day, I was walking through a wine country. It was one of the US's most famous wine countries. Wine tasting at vineyards was popular, and I saw people walking around happily. Also, recently, new sweet shops and cafes had sprung up, making it popular with the younger crowd. I loved the lively atmosphere here so much that I moved nearby. While enjoying a stroll in the lovely weather, I heard a familiar voice calling my name from behind. Who could that be? I turned around, and to my surprise, I was at a loss for words at the sight that greeted me. It was my ex-husband, whom I had parted ways with 3 years ago. Well, I never expected to run into you here. Are you taking a solo trip to wine country? That's pretty sad. He was dressed in work clothes, sporting a scruffy beard and messy hair. I wondered if he had quit working at the travel agency. I never imagined we'd bump into each other like this. My pleasant walk was completely ruined. So I hear you're stuck in debt hell because of some futile fertility treatments. My ex-husband approached me with a sarcastic smile. It's pathetic, really. All that effort for nothing. He scoffed, looking down on me. My ex-husband probably wanted to flaunt how he's happily living with a new baby from his second marriage. Thinking he's on the winning side and mocking me. And whose story might that be? I shot him a cold glare. I got the scoop from the landlord of that rental place we used to live in. Sounds like you're in debt. After I left, some guy you borrowed money from came to collect, right? You racked up debt for expensive infertility treatments, and in the end, you got nothing but a pile of bills. The man he mentioned was someone who had come asking about money when I was cleaning out the apartment alone after my divorce. Debt? You're mistaken about something. But hey, sometimes it's better off being wrong. I confronted my ex-husband with a truth that visibly clouded his expression. It was a shocking truth for him. 3 years ago, after our divorce, I was packing up our apartment when a man came by. That man wasn't a debt collector, he was actually Stephen's father. I had been told that he had run off with another woman years ago, but there he was, looking for Stephen. It seemed he had heard from someone where Stephen's married life was taking place. But by that time, we were already divorced and had cancelled the lease on the apartment. Consequently, our names had been removed from the doorplate and mailbox, so his father didn't know Stephen's apartment number and asked the landlord who lived on the first floor. The father mentioned only Stephen's last name and said he wanted to meet Stephen because he had lent money. Frightened by the thought of a debt collector, the landlord contacted me right away. When I heard from the landlord about the visitor, I simply said, "Let him in, I'll meet with him." The landlord loves gossip, and I was afraid of rumors spreading. So, the landlord, who believed the father was indeed a debt collector, probably told Stephen the story in a dramatic way when they bumped into each other. Stephen took it seriously. The reason Stephen's father came to the apartment was to ask for money. He had been abandoned by his mistress and was in financial trouble. Desperate to find Stephen, he came to ask for money. Unaware that we had divorced, he humbly asked me for help. However, it had nothing to do with me anymore. This man was not my relative or anything of the sort. I told Stephen's father to rely on his son and gave him Stephen's contact information. After that, Stephen's father left. Hearing this story, Stephen's face turned red with rage. "You gave him my contact info? Ever since then, I've been hounded by dependency inquiries. It's been a nightmare." Amidst the joyful laughter echoing through the wine country, the yelling of my ex-husband rang out. "Why do I have to help that guy? He left me and Mom, didn't he? Showing up now and asking for help, that's just too much." It's no wonder my ex-husband was angry. It was completely his father's selfishness. But I had no sympathy to spare for that. And then my wife says she's sorry for having such a troublesome father and even talked about getting divorced because of it. That's quite the sorry situation. However, for the sake of our child who's on the way, I convinced her to give our marriage another shot, and by agreeing to help out with her family business, we settled things amicably. I glanced at the name embroidered on the chest of his work clothes. From the company name, it seems like my ex-husband's wife's family runs a cleaning business. He gave up his position as the head of a travel agency branch and was now entering and exiting inns daily as a cleaner. And since his wife managed all the earnings from the cleaning business, my ex-husband didn't have a penny to spend freely. It seemed his wife had seen through his womanizing ways and wanted him out of the travel agency and under her parents' watchful eye. I was impressed with such a grounded young wife. She's got it together, doesn't she? But it's rare for a wife to make her husband live so restrictively. Is there another reason, I wonder? My ex-husband suddenly became quiet and his face turned pale. "What's the matter? You still hiding something from me?" I wasn't hiding anything. Just one thing was on my mind. "I wonder if the child that's being born to you and your wife is really yours," I replied, patting my slightly swollen belly. My ex-husband looked at my belly and froze. It was as if time had stopped just for him. In fact, I was pregnant. Just like the test results showed, there's nothing wrong with my body. After the divorce, I led a life far beyond my ex-husband's imagination. That life was bliss itself. Saying that, I tried to enter the upscale hotel in front of me. Then, he said, "Wait. Hear me out," trying to hold me back. But I had no obligation to listen to my ex-husband anymore. "We didn't ask for your cleaning services. So, please don't come in." My ex-husband looked at me, puzzled. "What do you mean we? Who are you to this place?" There's no more to discuss, but I'll leave him with one last thing. I'm the owner of this place. My ex-husband's face turned pale again. My parents loved this wine country. When I was young, our family often spent time in a small hotel here in this city. That hotel, filled with our memories, had become old and run down, overshadowed by the new, larger hotel that had sprung up around it. Eventually, it faced financial difficulties and nearly had to shut down. It was my dream to buy that hotel. I saved most of my income from the travel agency and, thanks to living frugally, I finally reached my savings goal. I bought it with the inheritance from my parents and my savings, renovated it, and successfully reopened it. From my experience in the travel agency, I created an inn that feels cozy for everyone, young and old, men and women alike. The reputation of the inn spread rapidly. Now it has joined the ranks of the luxury hotel, and my net worth has reached $260 million. Especially popular at the hotel is the food. Menus are tailored for each guest, and the meals are served with this personal touch. Many guests come back specifically for the meals. The meals reflect the dedication of the chef, who spares no effort for the sake of others. I empathized with the chef's caring heart, and we were drawn to each other. And then, I remarried him. After the remarriage, I got pregnant right away. I have no more conversations with my ex-husband. I turned my back on him. "Please, wait." It must be about money, as usual, why he's trying to stop me. To me, he's a stranger now. I owe him nothing. I have nothing more to discuss with you. Don't ever show up in front of me again. With that, I walked into the hotel. Even so, when my ex-husband tried to follow me in, he was stopped by the staff and sent outside. The sound of my ex-husband calling my name faded away and eventually disappeared. Our unexpected reunion turned out to be a crossroads for each of our futures. A few weeks later, I received a letter addressed to me. I was shocked to see the sender. It was from my ex-husband. Everything with my ex-husband was supposed to be over. Wondering what he could possibly want now, I opened the envelope with a bit of nervousness. The handwriting, packed tightly on a single sheet of paper, had distinctive quirks. It was unmistakably written by my ex-husband. The letter contained astonishing news. Here's what it said. Following our reunion, Stephen, suspecting that the reason for our infertility might lie with him, asked his wife if he was indeed the father of their child. Of course, the wife insisted it was his, but Stephen had long felt that the child was too different from him. After pressing his wife over and over, she finally confessed. The child he thought was his was actually the son of another man his wife had dated during her college days. After graduating from college and starting work at a travel agency, she quickly caught my ex-husband's fancy, and they began a sexual relationship. However, it was just a fling for her. Her real love was a boyfriend she had met during her student days. She became pregnant with her boyfriend's child and considered marriage, but once he learned of her pregnancy, he disappeared. He must have been feeling overwhelmed with insecurity about having a child so young, fresh out of college, unable to shoulder the responsibility. Terrified at the prospect of becoming an unmarried mother, the wife lied that the child was from her casual fling, who was my ex-husband, and married him to secure a financially stable life. However, after the marriage, when she found out that my ex-husband's father had run off with his mistress, abandoning his family, it echoed her own past of being abandoned by a boyfriend. So, to keep my philandering ex-husband on a tight leash, she threatened him with divorce to keep his attention on her. She had him work under her parents' supervision, managed his paycheck herself, and never let him have any disposable income. Fed up with the constricting life, my ex-husband went berserk upon learning the truth. The daily arguments with his wife became incessant, and he chose the path of divorce. However, his parents-in-law, who were on his wife's side, wouldn't agree to the divorce. Still, determined to divorce, my ex-husband fled from his wife's presence. With very little money to his name. Now, it seems he's been drifting from motel to motel, with nowhere to live. Even when he tries to find a job, without a suit and with his unkempt appearance, he's not having much luck. It sounds like he's just getting by on day labor to afford his daily meals. He wrote that. He wishes he could go back to those days. Don't make a fool of me wanting to get back together, I thought. I do pity my ex-husband's plight, but it's the path he chose. The fertility tests, the affair, and the way he scoffed at me when we reunited. He was always selfish, never considering my feelings. I'm not who I was back then. I have a bright future ahead, creating a family with my new husband and our baby on the way. I told him through a lawyer that if he ever shows up or tries to contact me, I will file for a restraining order. Then I tore up his letter. I'm due to give birth next month. The joy of meeting my baby is there, but I can't hide my anxiety about giving birth for the first time. However, my kind husband encourages me every day, always caring for my well-being, and on his days off, he helps with the housework. Because he's by my side, I know everything will be okay. Today's his day off. We'll walk through wine country, soaking in the changing seasons, and then we'll take a long, deep breath in the park. It's our favorite walking route. Oh! The baby just kicked! I exclaimed. My husband quickly placed his hand on my belly and began to softly speak to our baby. This happiness isn't guaranteed. That's why it's so precious. With that thought, I took another deep breath of the fresh air in our charming town.